President Trump's crypto czar, David Sacks, held a news conference earlier today laying out his plans for digital asset regulation and stablecoins. He also mentioned his team is looking into the feasibility of a Bitcoin reserve. Joining us now in an exclusive interview is David Sacks. He is President Trump's AI and crypto czar. And David, it's great to have you on Overtime. Welcome.
Good to be here.
So that's exactly where I want to start with you, and that is the fact that you did talk about the need for this clear regulatory framework. How quickly can you stand this up?
Well, I was on the Hill today meeting with the leaders of our House and Senate committees for banking and for finance, and they are very committed to moving legislation through the House and the Senate this year in order to provide that clear regulatory framework that the digital assets ecosystem needs to sustain innovation in the United States. And so those chairmen, I think, are very committed. President Trump is committed, and I think we can do something here. But as you know, moving legislation through Congress takes time. But I think this is something we could do in the next 6 months.
The feasibility of a Bitcoin reserve, you said that's being studied. It's one of the first things that's on the table here. What goes into that process? Is that something that would be standalone, or is that something that could potentially be tucked into, say, a sovereign wealth fund, which has been the speculation today on the heels of that executive order?
I guess it's possible that the sovereign wealth fund could decide that they want to make Bitcoin or digital assets part of its portfolio. You're going to have to ask the incoming Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick about that. The item that President Trump asked our working group on digital assets to study is whether it's feasible to create either a Bitcoin reserve or some sort of digital asset stockpile. And so we're going to be looking at that question. We haven't committed yet to doing it, but it's one of the first things we're going to be looking at.
Hey, David, good to see you. It's John Fort. So I want to zoom out for a moment. There's a huge opportunity here for you, for Silicon Valley, a number of entrepreneurs, investors who are in the Trump administration. I've heard from a number of people in Silicon Valley who are excited about what's possible. I also see a big risk in the sense that the scale of human impact in government is just different. We're seeing it in the reaction to some of what Elon Musk is doing initially. There's human impact domestically and globally. Is that in your mind at all? Because based on your success or not in these roles, it could affect perceptions of Silicon Valley for a generation or more.
Well, I mean, you're getting a little bit outside my lane here, John, but if you're asking me what I think about what Elon's doing, I think it's terrific for the United States and for innovation and for Silicon Valley. We have a federal government right now that runs a $2 trillion deficit every year, and the country's almost $40 trillion in debt. And if you want to ask what is the biggest threat to American prosperity and to continued American leadership and innovation, you'd have to say it's our out-of-control deficit and debt. And I think Elon Musk, at the directive of President Trump, is actually doing something to get that spending under control, and I think we should be welcoming it.
Yeah, I'm asking less, thank you for that. I'm asking less about that and more about just the difference in the scale of human impact between working in government and making investments and cuts there versus doing it with software or with hardware where some in Silicon Valley are more used to operating.
Well, I think it's quite amazing to bring software expertise to Washington. I mean, I'm seeing it here in my first few weeks that the systems that the government uses are so antiquated, they're so out of date. And so bringing people from the technology industry to Washington can only be a positive thing. It can only help us update those systems, be more modern, be more efficient. The government needs a lot more of that. And I think one of the things that's really exciting right now is that there is tremendous optimism in Silicon Valley, and there's tremendous support for President Trump in Silicon Valley. At this point, I don't know anyone who doesn't support President Trump's agenda and administration in Silicon Valley. And so I think it's actually been terrific to be able to involve a whole lot of new people in government from the technology industry. And I think it's going to bring a lot of innovation to Washington, which is sorely needed.
On the heels of the 10% tariffs, China overnight saying it's going to launch an investigation into Google over alleged antitrust violations. How are you gaming out the impact of trade tensions between the two countries on tech? Is this something that you're advising the president on in terms of the dynamic and how it affects things like technology and specifically AI?
China already discriminates against our technology companies. The trade relationship isn't reciprocal at all. So I think that what President Trump did by announcing that 10% tariff is just a partial corrective. And if China wants to respond, then that's something that we're going to have to decide.
David, recast for us, if you will, the value of Bitcoin specifically, cryptocurrency and blockchain technology in general. As we're now in the Trump administration era, we're in the back half of the 2020s. Back 5 years ago plus, there was talks about, using it as a means of buying things. Now it's more about the store of value and the way, perhaps hedge against inflation in various currencies. What do you see as the real value and the reason why the United States government should be paying so much attention to it?
Well, I think there's a few different aspects here when you're talking about digital aspects. So first of all, you got Bitcoin. It was the first digital currency, and it's the original. It's the strongest one. In the parlance of the industry, it's the most lindy, meaning it's been around for over a dozen years now. No one's ever hacked it. No one's ever cracked the security around it. And so it is an excellent store of value. So that would be point number one. Bitcoin is run on, as you know, a blockchain. It's basically a distributed ledger, which is essentially a form of decentralized computing. And that platform can be used to create a lot of other types of products. And so that would be sort of technology area number two, is all the innovation that can be built on top of blockchains. And then I would say a third area that's very interesting is stablecoins. And this is an area that has already taken off, but mostly offshore. We want to bring that innovation onshore. We want to enable legislation to allow the issuance of stablecoins in the United States. And I think the power of stablecoins is that it could extend the dollar's dominance internationally, extend it online, digitally, and create potentially trillions of dollars of new demand for our U.S. treasuries, which could help support our debt and bring down long-term interest rates. So I think these are all three very exciting areas of digital asset technology.